Were you getting tons of movement in the 3D? Maybe your 3D reality was conforming, getting that money coming in, or seeing that new version of SP where they're like the dude or chick from 50 Shades of Grey, and then it seemed like all of a sudden old story coming back and the money's going away and the new version of SP is gone, and now you're standing face to face with Chewbacca. If that's ever happened to you, you are absolutely not alone. If you want to know why that happens and what you can do to avoid it, then you're going to want to stay tuned. Hello everybody and welcome to another rousing episode of Spill the Tea Tuesday. My name is Flossie and I consider myself to be the funniest, wittiest mindset coach, as well as your OG hype you up rampage queen here on YouTube. If you want one-on-one coaching with me, links are going to be in the description box below, as well as a link to the Manifestation Accountability Journal. If you want 90 days of holding yourself accountable, where you are saying that you affirmed, rating your mental diet, listing maybe what you're grateful for, what you did that day, what you enjoyed, just as some little funsies, as well as having space to write the FU letter that you can rip out and the command letter if you choose to keep, then links for that are going to be below. Before I get to the topic at hand, you know I'm going to do my calendar. And so without further ado, this is Veni, Vidi, Vici, Bitchy. Well, there's no need to be bitchy in a 3D reality if you have what you want because you're affirmed and persistent, period. This says 1 day at a fucking time. Yeah, sometimes we're taking 1 hour at a time during this journey if it seems more difficult, but you only need to take 1 day at a time. Use that accountability journal if you need help with that. This says kick-ass things are around the corner. Yeah, kick-ass things are around the corner for those that affirm and persist. Facts. May you always give zero fucks about the 3D and the old story, period. Put that old story in the trash where it belongs. This is an asshole free zone, as in we don't allow shitty ass versions of people up in our 3D, period. And this says, may the fucking 4th be with you. Yeah, that's totally cool having a Star Wars analogy, especially when we're talking about the old version of SPs coming back and once again looking at Chewbacca. So let's get to the topic at hand. If you have noticed ever in your journey, or maybe you've had it recently, which some of my clients have had it recently, which a lot of times is where I get the topic ideas from my videos. Client concerns, what they're complaining about, what I'm noticing, or maybe it's your guys' ideas too. But anyhow, if you have noticed that your manifestation appears to be coming forth, you're seeing the new 3D, everything is looking like it is coming in and you are loving it. And then all of a sudden the old story rears like its ugly head and you're like, where did the dude or chick from 50 Shades of Grey go as in a new version of my SP? Because now I'm looking at Chewbacca, or I was having tons of money, poof, now the money's gone, or the job I'm manifesting, or the health, or the friends, or whatever. Things are looking kind of not preferred. What happened with that? Well, I'll tell you what happens with that, because it's quite often one of several things. I've talked about this in videos before. I think it's been a while since I've touched on it. And I guess I need to do a refresher because I'm seeing it come up more and more. So old story back. Yeah. What happened? A lot of times the number one biggest mistake I see people making quite often to have that old story come back is, number one, they stop affirming and persisting. They literally fall off of the affirming wagon, which is a video that I made about a year ago or so that I'll link here. So your manifestation's coming in hot. Your SP is showing up as the dude or chick from 50 Shades of Grey. Your money's coming in. Your job is coming in, and you're feeling good about your manifestation. Why? Because it looks to you maybe like you have it, or you're having so much movement that you think it's inevitable that you're going to have it. Well, so you stop affirming and you stop persisting, and then it goes away. Why did it go away? Because it wasn't hardened into fact. So we have a lot of negative thoughts that kind of pop in our head. And when we're in the manifesting process, there's some things that are going on. And it might be helpful if I give a little background before I go in depth into all the reasons. Number one, how do we manifest? Well, one of them is repetition of thought. To change our dominant thought in our head on the topic, on what we want. And when our mind starts to have a buy-in that we're thinking could possibly be true because it's become the dominant thought on that topic, it goes to subconscious to manifest. But guess what? when the 3D reality starts to conform, even though it might be our dominant thought that we're making on the topic, it's still not hardened into fact, as in hardened into fact to me means you expect that manifestation to be in your 3D reality just as much as you expect the sun to rise. You don't think about the sun rising because it happens. You expect it to happen. You expect it to happen, period, no matter what. So there are things already that are hardened into fact for you that you expect to be there, like you expect the sun to rise. You don't even think about it. It's just there. You expect it to be there because why? You experience it every day, or you experience it constantly in relation to whatever that item is. Well, when you're going through the manifestation journey and you have something hardened into fact that you've experienced regularly, like maybe not having money, and then you start forming the dominant thought and assumption, it goes to the subconscious to manifest about you having money, and you start seeing money, there's a part of you that still finds it more believable or more possible, probable to not have the money, to have the money go away, than the part of you that would expect it to be there, like you expect the sun to rise. And so it is still, in a way of looking at it, stronger for you. It's still the stronger assumption of the two, and it's the one that could still win if you stop affirming and persisting, because there's enough of you that still expects that to be there. Even though your 3D reality is conforming, your mind has a buy-in of it easier. And I'm going to get into some of that with some of these explanations of like the things that happen. But when you stop affirming and persisting, there are some things subtly that you could be thinking that you're not aware of that allow that old story to like literally come right back to the forefront, because you have stopped the things that you were doing that got the movement in the first place. We're supposed to affirm and persist for what we want until it's hardened into fact. And then even when it's hardened into fact, we should still continue to have a clean mental diet, because you don't want to think thoughts in line with what you don't want to experience, because you don't want to form a new dominant thought on a topic that isn't going to serve you. You want to make life happen for you and not allow it to just happen to you, which is why we do purposeful repetition of thought, and we keep somewhat of an eye on our overall mental diet on those topics. So you stopped affirming and persisting. You probably allowed some negative thoughts to creep in that you weren't aware of. And then boom, the old story came back, particularly for those of you who have like a cycle of the old story coming back. There's somewhere in your mind, you know, the process or, you know, pattern of having that old story come back. And you've got to keep affirming and persisting through to get to the other side of that so that your manifestation can become hardened into fact. Reason number 2 that I quite frequently see in you know, this whole coaching thing that I'm about to enter my 6th year of, is that people think that what they're experiencing is too good to be true. And they're basically always looking over their shoulder, kind of waiting for the proverbial shoe to drop. They're waiting for that old story to kind of come back, because they're thinking that what they're experiencing is too good to be true anyway, and that it's just not going to last. And so if that is your mindset, and that's kind of like what you're assuming, because you're telling yourself this is too good to be true, though, you know, it's going to come back. The old story is just going to come back because, you know, it's too good to be true. Then what do you think is going to happen? You're going to experience the old story coming back. Why? Because that's what you're telling yourself. That's the narrative you're telling yourself. That is the new dominant thought that you're creating on the topic, is that that's too good to be true, and it's not going to stick around. And so, you know, you can't keep expecting the old story and looking for the old story and then be shocked when the old story shows up. And I almost had those as 2 different reasons, but in the way they're very similar to the same thing. If you're looking at the 3D reality that's conforming, not fully conformed and hardened into fact, but you're seeing, you know, what you want, and maybe you've had it for, you know, a small period of time. If you're looking at it as too good to be true, waiting for the shoe to drop, expecting that old story to show up, looking for evidence and proof of the old story, you can't be shocked that's going to happen. Perhaps not do that behavior in the first place. You got to remember what manifestation is it's bringing a desire, this thought that you have, that you're having this repetition of thought, into the 3D reality to be experienced. Some people, when their 3D reality conforms, it looks like night and day. There's people who've manifested large amounts of money practically overnight. They've manifested, you know, homes, cars, bills being gone, stuff being paid off, random money being put in their bank. There's all sorts of ways people have manifested money or jobs or a career that just seemed to fall in their lap, Or, their SP goes one day from being the player to being the faithful, committed, everything they ever wanted them to be. And it can happen that way. But sometimes when we get things rapidly, our mind wants to be like, well, that's too good to be true. Well, you have to remind yourself who you are, which is a powerful manifestor who can be to have anything that you want. So you can have things transform like that because you're just shifting to a reality where it exists. Or you could look at it as your reality conforms to exactly what you want. It conforms rapidly because we don't have to place conditions or any rules upon these things. It doesn't matter what the circumstance is because circumstances do not matter. Whatever has to move is going to move for you to get exactly what you want. And sometimes things move quickly, like lightning speed. And then when that happens, sometimes our mind wants to be like, well, that's too good to be true. The old story is just going to come back, blah, blah, blah. Don't do that to yourself. Stay in your power period as the operant power of your reality because there's no such things as miracles, no such thing as coincidences. Maybe I'll link one of those videos here so that you can remember how powerful you are in the first place. Because people manifest things that seem impossible, improbable, not likely, etc. And we know those in the community. You've probably started experiencing some of those things already where you're like, I almost can't believe this even happened, or this unfolded in a way I never would have thought. Yeah, because you're powerful. So you need to keep remembering that when your mind wants to tell you it's too good to be true. Throw that shit in the trash where it belongs. Maybe you need to write a FU letter, command letter to yourself. Maybe I just need to include my FU letter, command letter video in here somewhere so that you can be like, yeah, if I start thinking that way, I'm just going to write a FU letter, command letter to myself. Facts. Because I want to get what I want. Number 3, you see something in the 3D reality and you want to assign the meaning that you're about to lose your manifestation because you're thinking, here we go again. So you have to keep in mind that our brain processes information and we frequently make split-second judgments, decisions, conclusions based on this information because our brain is basically like a supercomputer that has some limitations because it's not all knowledgeable. Having said that, when we see people having a behavior pattern in the past, or when we see, with money, certain things happen to our finances, or, maybe we're manifesting something different at work and we see a coworker or a boss, look at us a certain way or say a certain thing. And then we start having some negative thinking, like, because we're assigning a meaning that doesn't work for us. Oh, this person did this, or this happened to me financially, or the bank said this, or SP looked at me that way. So that must mean, here's the conclusion drawing, that must mean we're assigning a meaning that doesn't work for us, that XYZ is going to happen, and here we go again. Which I have a whole entire video on, here we go again. But you've got to stop assigning those meanings and instead decide to assign something else, or just ignore what happened or what you think happened in the first place, because your 3D reality is comprised of what you say it is anyway. And so if you see something that you don't think you want to say is not favorable, revise on the spot. No, like, what happened is X. Or, oh, like, this means that now. Like, this means that my stuff's coming in now, or this means my life is perfect now. Whatever that it is, I mean, you're going to have to look at the situation and decide you're going to revise on the spot, you're going to ignore it completely, you're going to not give a shit about it, you're just going to go to affirming and persisting, or you're going to just change the meaning of whatever that means in the first place. But you can't look at the 3D and be like, oh, I'm noticing this, which means now we're on the roller coaster part of descent because I saw this one thing, and every time I see this one thing or I see something similar to this thing, it means we're going down. No, because you don't have to be here we go again. And this also goes back to item 1, where you keep what? Persisting. Because persistence is choosing to think thoughts in line with your manifestation despite what you think you see or hear. And you want to keep doing that until what? Your manifestation is what? Hardened into fact. Because I want you to get repeating after me like a class. I will persist until what? My manifestation is what? Hardened into fact. And hardened into fact means I expect it like I expect what? The sun to rise. So, having said that, number 4, you keep talking about the old story or entertaining conversations about the old story, or wanting to ruminate on the old story whenever you see anything that might want to remind you of the old story. And the old story needs to go where, class? Again, it needs to go in here, because this is what the owl trash can. This bitch is what? Always hungry for your bullshit, aka your old story, your negative thoughts, and all of that. So sometimes we complain in the 3D, and we complain in the 3D to the wrong people. And, then those people are bringing up the old story or saying, why are you with this person? Why are you still at that job? Why are you still thinking that you're going to have money or be rich, or whatever that it is, whatever negative conversations that you've had they're flinging it in your face. Or you feel the need to complain, even though things are becoming better now. Or you're watching television and you see something that resonates with you because it has aspects of your old story, and you're like, oh, well, my SP always did this to me all the time. And then you start thinking about how SP would treat you like that, or how you'd have that situation with money, or how your boss was like that. And then boom, lo and behold, now you're looking at some old story. Yeah, because you went down the slippery slope of having negative conversations or negative associations with things in your 3D reality, like conversations or things that you saw on TV or whatever, with some old story, got a little too focused on the old story again, and now it's showing back up. Why is it showing back up, class? Because it is what is easier for your mind to have a buy-in fully on, rather than the new story that you're creating, that you're just starting to see. It's the path of least resistance, which a lot of times manifestation follows that. And that's an argument for another day. So you got to stop talking about the old story, got to stop complaining about it. And if you see things that want to remind you of the old story, you've got to like laugh that off and not get too engrossed in it. When you truly have what you want and your 3D reality is different, you're not going to be really focusing on the old story. You're not going to be complaining about it. You wouldn't allow conversations about it. You would shut that shit down. And if you ever had something remind you about it, you'd be like, yeah, but that was ages ago. Why would I even think about that now? Or I could care less now, or I've got millions of dollars to spend now, or SP and I are perfect now. So you wouldn't entertain that, and you wouldn't necessarily get engaged in it. So you need to put it in the trash. The other thing is, and this is like number 5, is things could still be unfolding, and you might need to be a little bit more patient. So if you remember, the oil and the water in the cup analogy, and I'll try to link that video here if I can. If not, I might have to put it in the description. But in the oil and the water in the cup analogy, you have this cup and there's some oil in it, and the amount of oil in it is depending on how many negative ass, nasty ass thoughts that you thought to get into the boat that you're in. Well, when you affirm and when you think thoughts in line with your manifestation, you're adding water, and that water is denser than the oil. It goes to the bottom, the oil goes to the top. And eventually, at some point, you get to be a 70-30 split, a 70% water, 30% oil, which is my approximation of what I think, as far as how, dominant thoughts, when you get to be about a 70-30 split, the new thought starts to become the dominant thought. Your mind starts to have the buy-in or level of acceptance that what you're thinking could possibly be true. It goes to the subconscious to manifest. Well, there are some things with your manifestation that you may have more resistance to than others. So if you're manifesting a specific person and they said they never have a relationship with you, you might find that you get the romance and the dates faster than you do the actual commitment. Why? Because you have the assumption that they're not going to commit to you stronger than the romance or the dates. Or if you're manifesting money, maybe you manifest in a bunch of money, but then you manifest, a bunch of bills or sudden expenses that take that money, because maybe that's how money has been for you. And you have less resistance into getting a ton of money and getting it in quickly than you do having less expenses. And so you could take this situation and put it on basically any manifestation. Some people at work, if they're manifesting better relationship with coworkers, maybe they have better relationships with certain types of people before others, or certain roles than others, or certain coworkers than others, because it all depends on the amount of what your dominant thoughts were on that topic or that aspect of the topic when you started, and how much oil that you had in that cup regarding that. So sometimes we see some old story, or what we think is old story, popping through because it's literally just the aspects of the manifestation that we have more resistance to, and it hasn't fully unfolded yet, period. And so maybe you need to look at that and be like, okay, I'm seeing that I'm getting this part of the manifestation very fast, and in my 3D looks to be conforming, but then I feel like I'm seeing old story over here. Maybe you need to have a specific affirmation that would target that old story. So if your assumption is SP doesn't want to commit to me, which I have a video about, SP wanting to commit around somewhere, perhaps you can have affirmations, about SP loves being your partner, or is happy they proposed to you, or is happy being your boyfriend, partner, significant other. Because if somebody's happy about something, that means that they also want it, which would deal with your thought process that they don't want to commit. If you are, thinking about money and having that money issue, maybe take your attention off of it by affirming something like, I have more money that I could ever spend, or I have more money that I could ever spend in like 10 lifetimes, or like, I'm so rich, I don't care about expenses. Or you can even be like, I don't have any expenses. I just have income coming in. You can manifest all sorts of things. Or when it comes to money, if you've got that situation where you easily have money coming in, but you always have money going out, randomly, it seems like when you get more money, you have sudden expenses. Maybe you affirm things that would take attention off of if you have expenses in the first place. And so if you're affirming, I have more money that I could ever spend in 10 lifetimes, you're not going to care about how many expenses that you have because you have more money that you could ever spend. Or if you're affirming that you're insanely wealthy, or if you're affirming that your expenses are drop in the bucket compared to your money, like there's all sorts of affirmations you could create, then you aren't going to really care about expenses anymore. And as you are getting more and more money, your expenses are just going to seem less because in relation to how much money that you'd have, they would be less. Does that make sense? I'm hoping that makes some sense. So anyway, you could have affirmations if you get along better with, one gender at work versus another or something like that, and you're just trying to get along with everybody, but you maybe think the girls at work are catty and you're getting along with your male coworkers or people who identify as male, just say, I get along with the girls at my work just as well as the guys at my work, or I get along as well with cashiers as the cooks or whatever. If there's different groups of people, you can have, compare, comparatively. I get along well with everybody or equally with everybody, or I'm everybody's favorite person. I'm everyone's favorite employee. I'm everyone's favorite coworker. All my coworkers adore me. Everyone's bending over backwards for me, no matter who they are or what their role is. I mean, there's all sorts of different things that you can come up with to affirm depending on what your situation is and what you see reflected back to you. One of the last points I want to make as far as what people do is I feel like there are certain people out there that if they see any part of old story or they see anything that they want to interpret as negative, even if they've gotten a ton of movement, they now want to throw in the towel and have a bunch of downward spiraling and be in their victim mentality, which I probably should link a victim mentality video up here if I still have the room. You shouldn't be the victim in your own reality. Like, you're literally the operant power. You can do have anything that you want. There is no reason to want to throw in a towel the second that you see something that you think is negative, because that doesn't mean that you can't have your manifestation. Sometimes people want to, for some reason, interpret information that they're seeing as, well, I'm never going to fully have what I want, or I could only manifest this so far, or because this seemed too good to be true and I saw a little bit of old story, like I'm just going to spiral now and I'm not going to affirm for 2 weeks, and then I'm going to be having to start all over because it's like I'm starting all over. Well, first of all, no, you're not starting all over, because that water that you put on the cup remains in that cup. You're not tossing the water out. You might just be adding more oil with your spiraling, carrying on, and being a victim state and acting a fool in your own reality. Having said that, you don't have to throw in the towel. You can do whatever you want as far as at the end of the day. If you decide you want to manifest something else, you can always do that, because I'm big into you just manifesting what you want, period, whether it's what you originally wanted or whether your desires change. But you don't have to throw in the towel thinking that you can't have it, or thinking that, getting a little bit of movement and then seeing the old story is the best that it's going to be, because it's not. There are plenty of people who've manifested stuff that has seemed impossible, improbable, not likely, or the polar opposite of what the SP ever said ever. And I don't care about what any SP has to say, or any person in your 3D reality for that matter. So stop acting like you've got to step into victim state and throw in a towel just at the sight of anything negative happening. Stop assigning meanings that don't work for you. At the end of the day, a lot of it is just assigning meanings that don't work for you. Sorry, my dog is dying to get on my lap, and she's beside herself to do that, and she needs to have her hair brushed, as you can see, because I just bathed her earlier and she's a hot mess express. But she sees that I'm recording and now wants to be part of the show. Say hi, everyone, Peaches. Say hi, Peaches. You don't have to throw in the towel. You don't have to decide that this means, oh, I can't have anything that I want because I saw something that I want to see as negative, or I saw some old story peeking through. No. Peaches and I want to say that's ridiculousness. Ridiculousness. Total ridiculousness. I had to say bye-bye, Peaches. She was just being too distracting. Having said all that, I think it's pretty clear, or I'd like to hope that it's clear. You don't want to stop affirming and persisting. You want to keep affirming and persisting until it's hardened into fact. And then even once it's hardened into fact, you want to think thoughts in line with your manifestation. Don't look at what you're getting as too good to be true. Put those type of thoughts in the trash. You can literally have what you want and have what you want immediately. And if it shows up that way, it doesn't mean that it's going to suddenly disappear or that it's too good to be true or that you don't deserve to have it. It's just, you don't have to wait for the proverbial shoe to drop. It's just your manifestation is starting to show up. And do what? Keep affirming and persisting and push through any of those negative thinking, the negative thought processes that you're having, that you have to look for the old story because the old story is coming. No, it's not. Your manifestation's there. Just keep going. If you see something that you want to say is some old story coming back, don't assign that a meaning. Put it in the trash, revise on the spot, think something else. Because when you start assigning that meaning, guess what? That's your assumption. You're going to see old story. If you just push through that and get to the other side of that, it is more likely that your manifestation will start to stick, and start to become hardened into fact. You don't want to keep talking about the old story. You don't want to keep blithering about it and going on about it. Why keep the old story alive when you want to stay in the new story? You've got to have both feet in. So you can't have one foot in and one foot out. You've got to have both feet in the new story, not one foot in the old story and one foot in the new story. And then keep in mind that your manifestation could be unfolding and you just need to be patient. Be a little more patient as things are unfolding, and use the unfolding to motivate you, which means, yes, what I'm doing is working. I just need to keep affirming and persisting. Use the tools. I mean, if you need to write a FU letter, command letter to SP, to yourself, to the money, to the job, to the employer, to the customers, clients, whatever, use those tools because they're effective. And it helps you to process what old story, old emotion, things that need to go in the trash, the negative thought processes, and so that you can affirm and persist easier. And then don't throw in the towel the second that you think that you see something negative, or if you see a little bit of old story. You don't have to do that, because a lot of times it's just, if you keep pushing through to the other side, those things go away. Those things go away. So at the end of the day, I hope that this video is being helpful to you. You just got to keep going and stop focusing on the old story and just expecting it to be there. You don't want it to show back up, and you don't want to start a cycle of getting part of what I want. Old story comes back, having to start, feel like I'm starting over, which I'm not, but I feel like I am. And so then I'm, getting back on the horse, and then I see some movement and new story. And then, oh, lo and behold, I'm having old story come back. You don't want to get on that hamster wheel either, which, you don't want to stop causing your own unintentional delay at the end of the day, because that's what these things do, is it causes your own unintentional delay, and it just makes the process more irritating, or it can. I mean, to me, I think it would be more irritating, and to my clients, they seem like they're more irritated, but then you got to step in your power and just get what you want, because you can. So drop any comments, questions, or concerns below, because I love to check them out, and as usual, I'll talk to you later. Bye.